So before I start, how many people in this room have heard the keyword, buzzword, VR, AR before? Great, I don't have to leave now. I can finish my session. How many of you have actually put on a headset? That's perfect, amazing. If I'd asked that question 2 years ago, the second question wouldn't have had so many hands. How many of you have put on a VIVE? Yeah, that audience gets less. I need to work harder. Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here today. So I work for HTC, and I work in the virtual reality business. And if you haven't heard about HTC, we are more well known to be a technology company which built some great phones. We built the first 4G phone, we built the first Android phone, and now we also built the first full presence, fully immersive VR system. We recently announced at CES our VIVE Pro, a system built for innovators, technology outliers, businesses, and engineers, and for professionals. And it won 28 awards at CES. But the vision of VIVE is to play at the intersection of humanity and technology. And when we play at that intersection, what we've seen is it unleashes imagination. So that really has been the core of our vision. We are not right now playing at mass consumer adoption. We are really working on how do we make this technology better at that intersection. And how do we raise the bar? So we are playing at a higher end of the market. But what we've seen happening today is 2 years in, we are almost at close to now 3,000 pieces of content built for this technology by developers. So that adoption has been pretty amazing. And while the leading use case is obviously your 18-year-old teenager who's using the VIVE to play games, or people putting on a mobile headset to watch 3D video, but I think the adoption curve for businesses, for enterprises in life sciences and engineering has been remarkable. So we are seeing all these new cases come up. I think that has something which means something to the audience here. So with VR, you can obviously push the limitations of your creativity. You can travel to all corners of the world. So you know, my parents spent, like I'm sure many people here who are in my age group, your parents or my parents spent half the time in India and half the time here. They're retired. My dad is 70. And he had this dream, one day to visit the top of Mount Everest. But he spent kind of too much time taking care of his family that he could never probably pursue his dream of being a mountaineer. So now that when he's spending time here, we actually load up Mount Everest in an HTC VIVE, and he can climb the Hillary steps and he can reach the peak. And those emotions are what drives us to do better. We've also seen great use cases of people in VR using it to express their love and emotion across different parts of the world. But the most important one we've seen is empathy. There is a developer in Europe who's built a VR app which is now being used by school counselors to teach younger people empathy. What does it mean to be the victim of bullying? I can sit here and talk about bullying and we can do research, but till you put the headset on and you can see the real impact is totally game-changing. It also does something amazing. It's amazing what it can do for people who have disabilities. How do we give them experiences which they cannot normally have? So as this famous Chinese philosopher, who I did not know of, has said, seeing is better than hearing, but experience is everything. So I want to talk about a small little case study here. Evan Gada, at 15, got cerebral palsy, and he spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. And recently, USA Today kind of talked about the story of Evan Gada. He lives in Nevada. And I'll just play a small video because he recently experienced what it would feel like to be able to walk or ski again. Thank you.
Oh, wow. How was it able to ski again?
I was in ski until I was 15 years old. You made it I'm watching. VR is going to be a very nice experience for anybody who's handicapped. I think it will open new doors.
So that's what inspires us now to think of what's next. And how many areas of life can we make an impact with? So I think we've been kind of talking more and more in the industry about this VIVE reality, where VR and AR come together with AI, and in the future also bring in 5G into the mix of this technology. Because today we are still dependent on the computing power of the device or a laptop. The next wave is this thing called all-in-one, which has probably a mobile processor sitting inside a headset. But we're relying on the computing power of the client rather than the cloud. But I think in the future, that could change significantly. So obviously our lives are becoming more and more dependent on our phones. And we can barely imagine a life where we don't have connectivity all the time. Today, before the session, I was trying to download this presentation onto my smartphone so I could review it while I was waiting for the session. And that was not happening because I'm guilty of making very, very heavy PowerPoint decks, around 400 megs. So that was an impossibility. And I was just thinking to myself about this session, talking about 5G, and imagine a world where very soon you would have 10 gigabits a second streaming down your phone, and the things your customers or you could be doing with this. So what does that mean for VR and AR? So like I said, if you could harvest a supercomputer in the cloud, your devices won't have to be that bulky. You won't need the processing power in the device because you could be streaming multiple gigabits down in seconds into your device, so you could really unleash the human imagination. You won't be constrained by local storage or local power, and if you can imagine, these millions of then devices all over the world will be able to even talk to each other at speeds which we can only imagine about today. And also, can you imagine what it means for the Internet of Things and AI, and then how your smart devices all across your home and your car and start kind of connecting to each other in a world where you are in virtual reality but interfacing with real physical devices in your home or in your office or in surroundings. So that brings us to what's the next wave? So AI, I think today we are spending so much time and research trying to understand how our gadgets work. Pretty soon, our gadgets will be doing the thinking of how we work. And they will adapt to our lives rather than us adapting to how we fit them into our house. I think that to me is a paradigm shift. So obviously we will add intelligence to all our machines, to devices, enabling people to kind of focus on doing more. So that will have what we believe are going to be the core kind of pillars where we see the impact outside of entertainment. The first will be education. You will no longer be bound by how much you could afford for a private school or a public school, because this technology will be prevalent everywhere. You will have even more access to information. I think when Google said they want to democratize content or knowledge, now you'll be able to democratize experiences, which is extremely powerful. You'll be able to get lessons from all across the world. You'll be able to connect. You'll be able to experience things and not just read them on a 2D interface. It will change the way we work. It will change the way we do engineering. It will change the way how we design things. It will change the way how we train our workforce. One of our partners is doing some amazing work in life sciences. They're now able to stitch together human organs in virtual reality. One of the best examples I've seen recently is, so one part of medical training I believe is really expensive is training young doctors when they first kind of walk into medical school is with human cadavers. Human cadavers are very expensive. But if you can really create a virtual cadaver with all organs built the way they are, you could really scale medical training. But also I think what is really impactful is how we could actually educate patients about the procedures they're going to go through. What will happen when they are under anesthesia, under the knife, what is happening in their body? So obviously, education, work, and life sciences is where we believe is going to be the next big area of impact. But I think one thing as I wrap it up, I can assure you the VIVE reality is here. So I think what it means to all of us here, if you're an entrepreneur, if you are in software development, or you're in solutions development, or you're in consulting, or whether you're building new technology stack, this is going to come. And this is going to happen extremely soon because there are people like me out there selling it. So thank you all for being here and listening to the presentation. Thank you.